Hello, I'm Patriot Mobile CMO Scott Coburn. Welcome to the Courage in Faith podcast, where we press in on things related to what matters most, our faith, family, and freedom. It's an honor to be joined today by someone I truly admire for many reasons, mostly because he loves the Lord with all his heart and because he made a decision some years ago that his faith was more important than anything else, even if it meant losing something he truly loved. His job as a high school football coach. In June of 2022, in the Kennedy versus Bremerton School District case, the Supreme Court ruled that the school district violated Coach Joe's First Amendment rights to free speech and free exercise of religion when it fired him simply for taking a knee and praying after football games. Since that landmark case, Coach Joe has continued to inspire others to boldly stand for their beliefs, even in the face of adversity, no matter the cost. We are truly blessed today to have my friend and fellow Patriot with us on the show, Coach Joe Kennedy. How are you, Coach?
I'm great. Good to see you, buddy.
Always good to see you, my man. Thanks for joining us today.
Man, I'm in town, so every time I'm in town, I love to come out here and see your crew, see everybody that works for you, and see the headquarters.
Well, it's a blessing to have you in the building, so thanks for stopping by. So let's jump in here.
Yeah.
Let's start with your faith. I think that's a pretty good place to start, right?
Yeah.
Let's go back to 2008. You were coaching high school football up in Bremerton, Washington, and you made a promise to the Lord that you were going to kneel and pray after every football game, regardless of the outcome, that you were going to pray and give him thanks. What led you to that decision?
Yeah, that's where it gets really weird with my life, because I want everybody to know that in 2006 and probably 2007, I was an atheist at that time. So it was right after I found my walk with the Lord that he found me to coach. And really, it was facing the Giants. I got offered the job, and so I went sitting there over the weekend, saw Facing the Giants on my TV, and I heard my calling. And that's where the covenant came from, is I said, God, I'll give you the glory after every game, win or lose. And that's the way it started, just a simple covenant with me and God. And I did that every week, twice a week for 8 years.
Well, speaking of Facing the Giants, great movie, obviously. But talk about that. So you actually were in a very unique position at that point in your life to shape and mold young men and really to impress upon them what's important in life. That's a pretty heavy weight, especially for somebody that's just getting into their faith. And talk about kind of that experience and the responsibility that you felt in shaping those men.
Right. And like you said, football was not my thing. I never really played football. I don't know anything about football. I'm not an X and O's guy. But being in the military and coming from a background of rough childhood and everything, I knew that there's a lot of young families out there that are trying to raise boys to become men. And that's what my calling was. And that's the only thing I cared about. And I really, took that to heart, because I had so many great X and O's coaches. But man, we needed somebody, in our community needed somebody that could just look after the kids, love on them, and take them from being these awkward young kids and make them into good young men.
Yeah. So that's really good. And, you and I have something in common, and that's that our wives really played a big role in our walk with the Lord and really gave us a desire to kind of drive deeper into our faith. We definitely have that in common. And I know when all of that went down with the school decision and you getting fired, Denise was actually an administrator at the school, right?
Yeah, she was the director of HR, so yeah.
I can only imagine what that was like. But even after that, and in the 7+ years leading up to the SCOTUS decision, I know that was some of the most strained times in your marriage, probably a very, very difficult time just through your story. Talk about how your faith, both yours and Denise's, really kind of helped get you through those times.
Yeah, for myself, that's the only thing I really had was my faith, because I was questioning everything. And I didn't know, there was no manual how to navigate through this, and how do you live according to the world or your faith? And I had to choose between those two. So there was times that especially after we lost 7 times in a row, that 8-year period of trying to get back on the football field. And this is over a 15-second prayer, which I kept thinking, why? This is so silly. I mean, really, is this worth fighting for? But to me, it absolutely was. It was the principle of it. And there was so many times that I had doubts and I was weak in my faith. And that's why I had to get that tattooed on my arm.
I love that.
2 Timothy 4:7, fight the good fight, finish your race, and remain faithful. Because nowhere in there does it say that we have to have the victory. But we need to show up and we need to be able to fight that fight.
Amen.
And just like you guys do every day, sometimes it just ends up on our knees at the end of the day going, God, could you get me through till tomorrow?
Yeah, that's good. Well, let's talk about the movie for a minute, Average Joe. Great movie, by the way. If any of you out there have not seen it, you need to see it. It's not only a very well produced movie, but it's a very important message, and we'll talk about the message a little bit deeper later. But as far as the way the movie was shot, I loved how they had the retrospective with you and Denise on the couch, kind of looking through the lens of your life, all the way through your life. And I'm sure as you were making the movie, what was that like, having to kind of relive every part of your life and kind of revisit that in a story kind of environment? What was that like?
Yeah, and you were absolutely right. That's the way we wrote the screenplay. We sat in our living room and we talked to our screenwriter, Stephanie Katz, and that's the way we did it. It was just us sitting there telling stories, and it was a beautiful thing, because I told stories that Denise had absolutely no idea. She didn't know that I came back to ask her to marry me. That was the first time she heard that. She had no idea I threw that ring off, into the Puget Sound. So there was a lot of things that were really eye-opening, and her character really developed a lot as we went on there. But to be on the set and everything else, it was really cool to be able to just tell your story and to see how God has had his fingerprints on us the whole entire time, and to see how our lives just intertwined until what you see today.
That's awesome. And one of the movies obviously is a great story, but one of the most impactful things about the movie is the end clip when Willie Robertson comes in and he really kind of hammers home the importance of the decision, right? So, and that really blew me away. That kind of summed it all up, how the obedience of one man could lead to religious freedoms being released in our country, like the likes that we've never seen in our lifetimes. It's like the butterfly effect, right? Just because of your one decision to be obedient to what you heard from the Lord, to kneel and pray, and then to take that through all the way through to the ruling. Look at what has happened as a result of that. The prayer back in schools, the monuments being restored, 10 Commandments being introduced back into the classrooms because of your obedience. Talk about, like, what is that?
See, I still can't wrap my brain around that, because really this was a 15-second prayer to start with, by myself. How does that turn into something this big? And like you said, it is just obedience of doing the right thing. And even if it's not popular, even if it might cost you everything, which it did. It just about cost me everything. But to see what God did with it, and that's why I love that he's got the victory. He'll restore you back to where you originally started. But what he could do with it, I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you right now. We've become really good friends. We have so many things in common that we get to share now. And I come and I speak. I just spoke at the Senate in Texas over the 10 Commandments and prayer in school. So you never know where God's going to take you if you just listen and you just obey.
So true. And let's just dig in on free speech for a minute. Obviously, free speech is essential to our democracy. And you talk about, like, suppressing speech is a tool of tyranny. It's a tool of oppressive regimes. It opens the door to that. And so you actually have kind of become a kind of a poster child for free speech, like it or not. You are. What do you plan on doing, or how are you planning on using your voice to continue to guard against censorship in our country?
That's the $1,000,000 question, because I've been trying to figure that out since I resigned from coaching years ago, and I ended up being the poster boy for this, which is, of all people, I think they got the wrong guy. But I go wherever I'm called, and that's the great thing is when you see an injustice of being able to go out there. That's why I work with Patriot Mobile a lot, is because I like what you guys stand for. And the First Amendment, it means a lot to me, because before I was a Christian, I was an American, and that goes across all party lines. That goes again. With everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a person of faith or not. Freedom of speech and the freedom of religion. And then we could roll into the second and third. I mean, really, the Constitution is set for a reason. And if we let the first one fall, the rest of them are dominoes.
Right. That's right. So, speaking of being an American, you're also a veteran. The 20-year service in the Marine Corps, you had combat duty in Operation Desert Storm. Is that right?
That is correct.
Amazing. By the way, thank you for your service. We just celebrated Veterans Day, so thank you, brother. You guys are really the heroes in this country, and we can't overstate the importance of our veterans and our active duty military. So, but
that just shows with your squad that you've hired here.
we love to hire veterans, but talk for a minute about your time in the military and your time in combat, how that prepared you for the challenges and the fights you were going to face later on in life, including the fight up to SCOTUS.
Right. And you never think that you're going to be fighting on your own soil against Americans for your own rights. When we take that oath of enlistment, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I never really thought about domestically until this happened, and we do need to flex our muscles. So what the Marine Corps did is not just prepare me for coaching, but to prepare me for the rest of my life and take all the intangible things that you learn while you're in the military, and it preps you and it hardens you and it strengthens you that you can endure all of these arrows that are being lobbed at you. And I will use those every day. So when I see an injustice, I will go wherever I'm called. I've spoken in almost all 50 states, and I'm really about free speech and really just wanting people to understand what their rights are as Americans, and that they have to exercise those muscles or they will lose them.
That's exactly right. And you mentioned a domestic fight, right? Something that our parents and grandparents didn't really have to worry that much about, but obviously, there's a different kind of battle going on in this country right now. And we have a president and an administration that's working really, really hard right now to kind of clean up some of the mess that the left and their silly policies they've pushed on us over the last decades and whatnot. But what are your thoughts or your opinions on this, kind of the direction of our country that we're going right now? Do you feel like there's been kind of some course correction and we're headed back in the right direction?
Yes, absolutely. The pendulum always swings, and we know it takes a long time to actually get it to swing. But we saw it going so far to one side that, people don't even know if they're a man or a woman. We're debating silly things in society that shouldn't even be debated. And Trump came in, and I think he really stopped that pendulum. Like with Charlie Kirk, there was a stopping point. So there is turning points in our communities and in our country. And I see a huge one right now. And it doesn't even have to be everybody come back to the Jesus moment, but we need to come back to the center of what normal common sense looks like. And Trump, you're doing a great job, buddy. Keep it up, because, the whole administration, I know people aren't happy with this and that and whatnot, but it is really starting to level things out, and we can start to have our freedoms again. And I think we're in a really good place.
I agree. And so, in speaking of things that we can all be doing, right? We're aware of this concept of the red economy that we're in, and the concept of voting with our dollars and supporting companies that align with our own values and beliefs. You've been a Patriot Mobile customer for a while now. I think you understand the importance of what we're doing and our mission, which, by the way, has nothing to do with cell phones and everything to do with defending our God-given rights and freedoms. Talk about how important that is to support companies like Patriot Mobile and others that are boldly out there defending our freedoms.
Yeah, and it's just not the mom and pops like you always hear, that you really need to pay attention at the local levels of community things that are in your community. We think always on the national level of who's the president and Congress and those things. But I mean, all the way down to our school board members, we need to be down at those grassroots areas, because that's our everyday things. And so when you see companies like Patriot Mobile that's out there, you could go for, one of the big names and we have all of this, but you guys use all the same
we do
things that they
same towers, all
same
three
towers.
Networks.
But where does my money go? And that was such a simple thing for me. That's what I really loved, is because what difference does one person make? Well, I made one bit of difference. If I could stand up and do one thing and change the nation in that, imagine what I could do just by taking my wonderful cell phone, which I use every day, and there's so much power in that thing. And really, where does this money go? I don't want to go to some woke agenda somewhere else. I know where the money's going. I know all your employees. I know all the people and what you stand for and the things you do across our country. And if we're not supporting those companies, what are we doing? We're supporting foreign and everybody else.
That's right. That's right. So let me ask you, what's next for Coach Joe? What do you got on the horizon here?
Wow. Well, I'm going to Israel here next month. Get to do a couple commercials for you guys, and I'm really looking forward to finding out more about Israel and building an ambassadorship with Mike Huckabee and everybody over there, meeting with Bibi Netanyahu. My wife and I, we really started speaking together.
That's awesome.
Look at that. You're already
Service
going.
is good.
Yeah, even in the studio, it's perfect. We speak at a lot of marriage retreats, a lot of churches, and it's really opened up for her a lot. God's really calling her to have her story, because I think her story is way better than mine.
Amazing.
Because I was made to fight. She is not. And like you said, your wife is monumental, and there's two sides to every story, and we want to make sure that we tell the story, not just from the man's perspective, but from a woman's perspective. So while I'm trying to teach men to be men, I'm working with Coral Ridge Ministries now. I'm working with Vintage Gentlemen to really get back to our roots of what it means to be a man, so we can empower women to be women and bring us back to normal society. So I'm kind of on that quest of what is next, and I will go wherever I'm called. Well,
we want to thank you, Coach Joe, for your heart and your willingness to serve and your obedience. I know you, and I've known you long enough to know that you hear the Lord and you're obedient. So thank you for that, and just know that we will always be praying for you and Denise and your family. And anything at all we can do to help you guys, we're here. So thank you very much.
I know that. That's why I love you guys.
Well, that's it for this edition of the Faith in Courage podcast from Patriot Mobile. And until next time, God bless you and God bless America.